in space.
To explore every phase of cosmic history.
It's a new era of pioneers, star sailors, thinkers, and adventurers.
3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running.
Let's go.
We have been given the scientific knowledge, the technical ability, and the material to pursue the exploration of the universe.
I'm Jessica Arriola, and I am the lead for Public and Digital Engagement for the Quest mission. Me llamo Jessica Arriola y soy la líder de comunicaciones para los medios sociales y en persona. My role with the mission is to communicate using social media channels or in person at events. The Quest mission is seeking to change rules that essentially would enable commercial supersonic flights over land. So for me, that's really exciting because that means that I would get to go from Washington, D.C. to LA in half the time. So I could see my family maybe more often. I am a product of immigration. I was born and raised in Southern California. And because of that, I work on making sure that we have as many resources as we possibly can to also include the Spanish-speaking population. To be at, say, an event and be able to communicate to someone in Spanish, it's pretty rewarding to see someone light up and then just, they're so appreciative. As a kid, I was pretty creative. I remember wanting to be an interior decorator or a fashion designer. I even thought I could maybe be a singer. Mind you, I can't sing. One of the milestones that I'm looking forward to with the Quest mission is first flight. Like, I cannot wait to see the X-59 in flight. I cannot wait to see it take off and see it in the air and really experience what it sounds like. So much of what we're talking about with the Quest mission is sound. So I can't wait to actually hear it or maybe not hear it.
My name is Matt Camlett. I'm the communications deputy for NASA's Quiet Supersonic mission. Our job as communicators is to provide a voice for NASA to communicate with the public, but also it's a two-way street. We provide a voice for the public to communicate with NASA. In a given week, we might be working on social media posts. We might also be working press conferences and delivering on-camera news about what NASA is doing and the status of our mission. We will be flying the X-59 over communities beginning in 2024. The public will be providing feedback to NASA based on their perception of the X-59 when it flies over their communities and the quieter sounds that it makes during supersonic flight. My start in communications really came from being a sports broadcaster at my junior college. From there, I went to doing play-by-play announcing for the Long Beach State Dirtbags baseball team. At CBS, I covered the Dodgers and the Lakers and the LA Kings, and got to learn from some of the giants in the industry, people like Vin Scully. Growing up in California, I've grown to love the outdoors and the beach and the ranches. That's what helps provide my balance with work. You can usually find me at the ranch with my horse, Vinny, an animal with that kind of personality. He's almost more my buddy than just my horse. To actually see this X-plane, this experimental aircraft coming together, It's striking knowing that you're looking at something that can change the future of flight for all of us forever. What's really, really cool about NASA's Quiet Supersonic mission is we're seeing a lot of different NASA centers across the country come together in one goal as one NASA. We're really excited about this mission. We believe in it down to our core, and it's also a heck of a lot of fun.
My name's Paul Deese. I'm in the propulsion group. I'm the deputy propulsion lead, and my main focus is the integration and test of the GE 414 engine into X-59. For the engine, in and of itself, X-59, wouldn't go anywhere without it. So for our job, it's making sure that all the air that's going into the engine is clean and gives the engine the air that it needs to produce thrust, and then shoot all those molecules out the back and push everything forward. One of our most precious resources as humans is time. And so this technology and this capability, I think will be able to give people more time at wherever they're wanting to go. And that's invaluable. There's very few things I can do in my job without teamwork. And everything that we're doing on X-59 is building towards one final, piece of hardware. Going through school, a lot of teachers encouraged me as an individual. I was heavily involved in music and theater. And as weird as it sounds, I almost think of flight test as a musical or an orchestra. Everyone has their piece to play, everyone has a position to be in. When we actually do rehearsals, we will do practices, we will do tests with the pilots, with the sims, to practice for the actual, activities that we're doing. To boil it down as similarly as a high school theater production. Everybody practices their part, and when it comes to their time to shine, then they do their part. Integration and test, I really love it.
I am Sarah Wechter. I am the Deputy Project Manager for Execution for the Low Boom Flight Demonstrator Project. So the goal is to prove that we can go supersonic without a large sonic boom. X-59 will fly over different communities across the country. The communities will have a chance to give feedback back to NASA on the sonic thump that they hear in their house, at the grocery store, or outside in their car. So I lead a very diverse team that does everything from cybersecurity to financial management. I grew up on the hills of Ohio, at the top of a hill with a farm full of pigs and chickens and fields rolling and family on every corner. So growing up on a farm, I learned a lot about contributing as part of a team. So everyone in our family had to help. No one got to stay inside and enjoy the cool weather. We all were outside working together as a team. And on the farm, we got to get a little bit of our hands dirty, so we all were able to contribute. And same with on our low boom project team. We all worked together. Every chart, every analysis has a whole team behind it that contributes to make that a success and make sure it makes sense across the whole project. Watching X-59 fly for the first time will be so rewarding, not just for what I contributed to the mission, but to know that team members have worked on the research for this mission for years, for decades, and to know that I was a small piece of it, but more so as a part of a team that made this idea many years ago actually happen and fly and be a success and make a change for the world. There's no better feeling. That's part of why I love working for NASA, is having that pride.
I'm Don Durston. I do sonic boom wind tunnel testing for the X-59. When we run these tests, we hope to measure a sonic thump instead of a loud sonic boom. I lead the group of researchers that are involved with the sonic boom wind tunnel testing, but I would never plan a test just on my own. To run a wind tunnel test, it takes not just the researchers who bring the model to the tunnel, but the whole tunnel operations crew. It's just such a big team effort. I feel like a small cog in this giant wheel of progress in doing wind tunnel testing. What got me into actually flying is that I just enjoyed the experience of being up in the third dimension, getting off the ground, being free to fly the airplane around wherever you want, see whatever you want from the air. I grew up in Southern California. I think from the first time I looked up in the sky and saw an airplane and realized that there was a person flying that, I said, I have to do that. I want to fly airplanes. For my 7th birthday, I told my dad, I don't care about any of the presents. I just want an airplane ride. I want to feel the controls of an airplane. So we did that. We went for a half-hour flight over Disneyland and back. As I was growing up, we heard lots of fighter airplanes pass overhead that were going supersonic, and I heard sonic booms from them. So I got very excited about that, and I wanted to study airplanes and learn how they fly. So I'm a 1/4 owner of a Cessna 182. We formed a small flying club, and it's just the 4 of us. I have taken my family up in my airplane a number of times. I took the younger son and his wife up to the wine country, to Napa, and their friends were so impressed that instead of driving there, they got to ride in a private airplane to get there. When I see the X-59 take to the skies for the first time, that is going to be a really exciting day for me. I can't wait for that day, and I'm not retiring until I see that.
I'm Stephen King, a 3D artist, and I get to make images for the X-59 Quest. My job really involves working with the engineers from the get-go and getting the data from them and getting 3D models so I can do my job in producing the images for them. And usually what that is beautiful images, beautiful renders, and prevising this thing to make it fly, take off, and really showcasing the features of this aircraft. My favorite part of the X-59 is the long nose. It's something so unique to this aircraft that we really don't get to do anything like this with any other aircraft that we get to touch. Part of the process of finding references for X-59 is looking through NASA's catalog of other X-planes and seeing what features we can take from those and apply it to X-59. We really get to showcase not only how long the plane is, but the XVS camera system that's being used. And the X-59 pilots, they're going to be flying this thing without a forward-facing window, which is really awesome because they're going to be looking at a computer screen that's showing them what would be there. And that's something out of sci-fi, if you ask me. In my free time, I really don't like to do anything related to the computer. I like to work with my hands, actually. So I do a lot of scale models and action figure repainting. That's skills that actually translate back over to the computer. I like to recharge by going hiking, biking, kayaking. That's really what gets me rejuvenated. If I'm not learning at work, I'm not really pushing myself, and that's important to me. I want to stay on my toes, and I want to be able to learn new things. We've been doing these images for years now, and to finally see it coming together is just so exciting, and I'm excited for first flight and to see all that hard work and see all the graphics, everything come together. It's going to be awesome. Yeah, I definitely have the coolest job in the world.
I'm Clayton Myers. I'm the Deputy Project Manager for the Commercial Supersonic Technology Project. My role on the project is to oversee work and preparations for the Quiet Supersonic mission. The project team is made up of people from NASA Ames, NASA Armstrong, NASA Langley, and NASA Glenn. The shaping is really the key to our technology in that we create shock waves, a bunch of small ones that come down in parallel so they don't coalesce and create the big boom boom that you typically hear with the current military vehicles. To unwind, my wife and I like to walk up to Huntington Beach, which is not very far from where we live. The path we take is about a 3-mile walk, and we just enjoy stopping and looking at the waves over Lake Erie to see how they're doing on a given day. I grew up on a farm in Ohio. We had sheep sometimes we had pigs, sometimes we had ducks, we had a few geese. We had over 400 acres where the cattle were located. When you're raising cattle, it's like a long-range project. They just don't typically grow up quickly. The hard work, I think the perseverance helped. You know you're going to start things, and you're going to tackle problems, and then you're going to go tackle the next set of problems. When I was growing up on the farm, I would occasionally take walks out in the field, and I would look up and see contrails that were left by the aircraft at high altitudes, and I'd be fascinated by them, and so that's what got me interested in aviation. The NASA Quiet Supersonic mission is the first of its kind. I've been at NASA for 38 years, and I haven't seen anything like this. I'm excited to come to work every day and interact with the people that are on the team. When the X-59 flies, it will be a very rewarding experience built upon decades of people's work coming to fruition, and I'm just very proud to be a part of it all. It's going to be a very exciting time.
My name is April Lynott, and I'm the STEM Integration Lead for NASA's Aeronautics Research Mission Directorate, and I live here in Colorado. So my job working with the LBFD team is to see what's going on, to learn more about what we're doing here at NASA, and then take that and figure out ways to bring it into the classroom. I spend a lot of time learning more about what's going on, taking a look at what's happening within the mission, and finding the best ways to connect all of those different elements and build something that students and teachers can use. My favorite part about being a teacher was always watching the excitement on their face when they discovered something or they saw something for real that they had just done. So they might have read about it, they might have seen it in a movie, but to actually experience it, build it, get something to work that they built with their own two hands is probably the best part about teaching. Kids love the X-59. The X-59 is such a unique looking aircraft. It looks futuristic. It's different than any other airplane that people have seen. When I'm not working for NASA, you'll typically find me out in my garden, or you'll find me camping or fishing with my family, or you'll find me and my kids at the cat sanctuary where we volunteer. We did adopt one of the kittens, so we caved in, and we now have Milo, who's one of our little kittens in our house. Whether you want to be an engineer or a pilot or a scientist, that's one element, but we have such a huge need for all kinds of other people to become a part of our NASA family as well. Everyone has a place in STEM.
My name is Joe Dustling. I work as a data engineer at the 8-foot by 6-foot supersonic wind tunnel at NASA Glenn Research Center in Cleveland, Ohio. For the X-59, we've actually looked at the aerodynamics of the aircraft itself. We've looked at the distortion being ingested by the engine. We've looked at the stability and control aspects of it. And upcoming, we actually are looking at the sonic boom that will be coming off of the aircraft, where hopefully we'll be able to confirm the predictions of NASA researchers that the aircraft will actually be producing the sonic thump, not the sonic boom. Working in a supersonic wind tunnel, we're constantly installing different models, installing different test articles, and we have to be able to adapt and test on the fly. We work in a team environment, and so every single person has their own responsibilities, and therefore no 2 days are ever the same. I love to be outside. I spend a lot of my time working in a supersonic wind tunnel, and so anytime that I can be outside after work, I really enjoy it. I love hiking, kayaking, running. I'm a huge ultimate frisbee player. I play disc golf. Really just anything that I can do outside, I like to do. I am an award-winning homebrewer. It's been a hobby of mine for about 9 or 10 years now. I got into homebrewing by actually discussing this with some of my friends in grad school, and we were looking for a hobby that was an outlet, that was fun, that still required some engineering and science background to it. You get to create a consumable product, and it's just fun to create a good beer. The beer that I'm most proud of is actually my Roasted Jalapeno Pale Ale. It's won several medals and competitions around the state, and it's a fan favorite. It always means that the fall harvest has come, and it's just a great beer to enjoy on the back patio, enjoying the garden as well. I've always loved my job working as a data engineer at NASA, and having the opportunity to work on an X-plane is something that as a child I absolutely dreamed of, and to be able to work on it is just such a life achievement and so fulfilling that I never imagined I would actually be here at this point in my career. And this is something that I know I'm going to look back on and cherish throughout my entire career.
My name is Tegan French, and I'm one of the supporting meteorological engineers for the NASA Supersonic Mission and X-59. Really, my job is the technical aspect of building the instrumentation, deploying it to the sites that they want, and just making sure the data is good. We do surface weather, setting up surface weather stations, and we launch balloons. When we're launching balloons for the project, they want us to launch it before every takeoff. That weather data is used to map out how the sonic boom will be concentrated to the people on the ground. As a kid, I've just always loved weather. I love clouds. I discovered that, looking up to the clouds was something that really helped make me feel better, and it gave me comfort. And as I got older, it developed into a deeper interest in science and weather. I'm someone who loves all weather, and I definitely love all the extremes. I think I just do appreciate all the different types of environments that weather creates and how it connects with the whole ecosystem. I really love to go hiking. I love being outdoors. I live in the Antelope Valley in the desert, and we are surrounded by mountains. So there's a lot of rock formations in this area. I love to climb the mountains. I take my dogs with me. We do game night. I also like to build roller coasters with my niece. So like miniature roller coasters where we put kinetic toys together and we build roller coasters together. I don't think I could do my job without my team. The collaboration between them, like when we put all of our brains together, we get the best solution that we could possibly get. I love my job. It's kind of a childhood dream.
I'm Walt Silva. I'm NASA's Structures Lead for the X-59 project. Hola, soy Walter Silva. Soy el jefe de NASA para estructuras para el proyecto X-59. The structure really is what obviously holds everything together, and it has to be 100% on the money. It has to be right. One of the challenges that we often encounter with this class of vehicles, because they're supersonic and you want to have a low boom signature, they are required to be very long and slender. It creates more flexibility than if it was short and stubby. And so because it's more flexible, the fuselage, and then you have a big weight of the engine right back here, is going to create a flexibility that we have to address. We have to account for that. What I really enjoy is when both NASA and Lockheed teams are together and we're looking at results. And if sometimes we come across a challenge or problem, we all try and come up with ideas on how to solve it. I was actually born in Colombia. When we were little, we moved to the US. And so my first exposure to an airplane was actually flying as a little kid. And that had a big impact on me. It's just the whole idea of flight, to me, has always been fascinating. To see large, heavy structures actually just float. To me, that just awakens my imagination and just really excites the child in me. And when I'm not at work, I'm flying RC airplanes, I'm flying drones, enjoying music, all kinds of music genres. Austin is our 13-year-old golden retriever. He loves to play with the ball outside. He's 13. He chases the ball as best as he can. He's just a very gentle soul, a very, very sweet boy. I'm sensitive to folks who may not always be comfortable in a language, and even if I don't speak their language, I try to use sign language or anything to help them, because I know what it's like. I was helped. There were people who helped me when I was little, so I was very appreciative of that, so I just like to pay that forward. The first time when I see that X-59 flying, vea, va a ser increíble. Va a ser un momento super especial. It's going to be fantastic, a moment filled with joy and pride.
My name's Kurt Long. I work on NASA's X-59. I'm an aerospace engineer. My main job is to help design, develop, and test the pilot's life support system, the oxygen that the pilot's going to breathe while we fly. I also help out a little bit with flight test planning and execution once the aircraft is built. So many people don't know, in the ejection seat for the X-59, it has to sustain the pilot in the unlikely event that the pilot has to eject. If you eject at a high altitude, the pilot's going to fall for 5 or 6 minutes before they get down to an altitude where they can breathe. So we have to make sure there's enough emergency oxygen contained within the seat so the pilot can breathe the whole way down. I am a mentor, and I do get to work with a lot of really talented students. I think a lot of students are drawn to X-59 because it does represent the future, and I think it's a lot of hands-on work. This is a real aircraft that's really going to exist. And the students, they see that, hey, I actually can have an absolute say in the development of a truly, truly game-changing bit of technology. When I'm not working, I do like to take vacations that sort of go a little bit more extreme. And in particular, I go on vacation to collect stories. I'm a big fan of Life is All About collecting stories, going and trying things that are a little bit outside your comfort zone, because it teaches you a little bit about yourself and makes you more confident to go do other things as well. I love a lot of outdoor activities. Most every one of them relates to either wind or water. I like flying gliders. I like sailing. I sail an awful lot. Aviation safety in general, both commercial and military, has improved tremendously, leaps and bounds in the 3 or more decades that I've been working in aviation. We have lowest accident rates today than have ever been in existence. With X-59, we plan on keeping those accident rates incredibly low. Non-existent is what we're shooting for, and I think we're just about there. Here we are getting very close to X-59's first flight. I know myself and everybody else is going to be really excited that day when we see it actually, the wheels leave the ground. Looking forward to it.
I'm Alexandra Louveau, and I am one of the technical leads for community testing with the X-59. We're going to be surveying the public in different communities across the U.S. to better understand how they perceive the sound from the X-59. My role in the community test is to ensure that we've accurately measured the sound of the sonic thump from the X-59. This data will be able to provide to the U.S. and international regulators so that they can change the rules so that in the future, you and me will be able to fly supersonic around the world. So I started playing the violin in 3rd grade. When I went to college, I studied music engineering, where I got to learn a little bit about microphones and loudspeakers and recording of music. My husband and I play in a local orchestra called Symphonicity. We put on several performances throughout the year, and we like to say that we just play for the love of music. Origami I picked up, I don't know, at some point in college, and just thought it would be a fun thing to do. And it turns out that my husband also really likes origami. So we've actually gone together to origami conferences to learn how to fold more fun things. One of the things that I love about my job is actually being able to partner with people even outside of NASA, and working in this international regulator group is actually a lot of fun, where there are people from different places, different cultures, different backgrounds, but we're all working together towards the same goal. I'm really excited to hear the first sonic thump from the flight of the X-59. That'll be the beginning of a new era for commercial supersonic overland flights.
I'm Larry Clyett, and I am the technical lead for the acoustic validation phase of the Quest mission. During the acoustic validation phase of the mission, that's where we will measure the sonic thump and make sure it's as quiet as we designed the airplane to be. We'll do that a number of ways. We'll do that on the ground with a lot of sensors scattered throughout the desert. And we'll do that in the air, too, with some airborne systems that have recording devices that can measure the sonic thump of the airplane. So I love to cook. It's probably my number one hobby. I like trying new concepts, new ways to cook. I like making Asian foods, just Asian-inspired cuisines, whether it's Chinese, Japanese. I love making Thai food. I love to barbecue. And I think a big part of my love to barbecue and to smoke different foods is the method behind it. I mean, it's a process. I've loved Legos since I was a kid, and then I think only maybe 4 or 5 years ago I discovered that Legos can be for adults. And part of it is a little bit of escape. Everybody needs a hobby to get away from the demanding job, but a lot of it is just continuing on that creative mindset into our daily personal lives, I think, as well. The Quest mission is not just 4 or 5 years old. It's 5 or 6 decades where NASA has been investigating the ability to quietly perform supersonic commercial transportation, to be able to go from point A to point B faster. It's a very big collective effort across the mission and across many NASA centers to make that happen. And so that's what really excites me about all this.
I'm Tiffany Titus. I'm the ground operations lead for the Quest mission at X-59. As the ground operations lead, I'm responsible for overseeing the planning and execution of all things ground operations with the X-59 aircraft. I'm kind of in a way like a wedding planner, where I'm making sure the plane is ready to go from a maintenance standpoint, making sure all the teams are ready to go to support the mission, and just really making sure everything comes together kind of like you would on your big day. Prior to joining X-59, some of the projects that I supported included studying sonic boom acoustics and sonic boom interactions, including the Schlieren imagery that's now famous of the two T-38 interactions. Watching Sally Ride launch on STS-7 back in the early 80s really inspired me to want to go into science, technology, and math and just pursue that career. And now I'm here today, thanks to Sally Ride. When I'm not at the office, you can pretty much find me in the Sierra 24/7, whether it be winter, fall, spring, summer. I love being in the mountains and I love being off the grid exploring. It's just a place of, for me, zen, relaxation, a chance to explore and just wander. My husband proposed to me back in the Sierra, and our wedding was actually at a lake in the Sierra where we had friends backpack into to join us. I really enjoy getting to do STEM outreach working at NASA. I think it's great to be able to go to different events, basically just inspire them to keep going, to ask questions, to keep pursuing things that they might not normally think they have a chance to do. As a girl growing up in Michigan, I never thought I would have the chance to really see something like X-59 fly. It'll just be really neat to see all of it come together and all that hard work of the team members just really pay off.
Oh, it's a privilege. Please call me Tom.
Tom, Victor.
Should I call you Victor?
And the privilege is mine. It's so amazing to meet you, even virtually.
It's great to meet you. Congratulations on your extraordinary career thus far. It's really what you've accomplished. I have great admiration for.
Well, thank you. And, you know, the movie Top Gun obviously had a huge impact on me. And as much as I want to throw Top Gun quotes at you, I won't. I'm sure you get a lot of that. So thank you, because you had a part in that.
Boy, it's an honor for me. And I can't wait for you to see the next one, Top Gun Maverick. I can't wait.
Oh, I can't wait either.
It's an honor.
I'm ready.
Oh, man. I'm ready to show it to you. I can't wait, man.
Awesome.
So listen, I have a few
excited.
questions for you, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir. Let's do it, Tom.
Because obviously you've flown, I guess, 40 aircraft over as a test pilot, many different aircrafts. The F-18 is a naval aviator test pilot. Now, flying the Dragon, SpaceX Dragon, how does that compare to that? And what do you think for yourself, what was the most exhilarating aspect?
Awesome. You know, the Dragon is a touchscreen. The displays are also where the controls are. And so that's quite different than flying an aircraft with a stick and a throttle. And so when I first saw it, I will be honest with you, I was like, I don't know, guys, I need my inceptors. I need something to move around. But as I learned more about what the vehicle does and what its purpose was, the touchscreen actually was wonderful. It worked great. And the most exhilarating part of it all was riding the Falcon 9 rocket. It is such a high-performing liquid rocket. It's smooth, but it really leapt off the pad, and we got to the 100-kilometer point, and we were all smiles. It was just so amazing. You can really feel the accelerations and decelerations, and then once we got onto the upper stage, the second stage, and you just start building speed, I've pulled Gs before in fighter aircraft, but to be able to pull Gs for almost 10 minutes straight was just power like I've never experienced, not even launching or landing on a carrier.
Really? I've been fortunate. I've got some launches and I landed on carriers on the Roosevelt, and that kind of G's, that kind of force coming off there is pretty incredible. What was it like with the Dragon? What did it feel like with the Falcon 9? I mean, how many G's were you pulling? And I know you're laying down.
Yes.
What was that like?
And so it is different. In the fighter, the G's go from your head to your toe, and that's why we practice these specific maneuvers to keep blood flow to your brain so you stay conscious and you don't gray out or black out. The G on a rocket launch goes into your chest, and so you naturally can sustain more G's in that direction, and the G is actually lower. So the maximum G we saw was about 4.5. But what's different in a fighter, you'll experience, I pulled 9 Gs in a fighter aircraft, but that was only for seconds. And, you know, I've sustained 3 to 4 Gs for maybe a minute or a minute and a half in a dogfight, in a turning fight. But on the Falcon, except for staging and throttle down, you are accelerating the entire way for about 9 minutes. It was about 8 minutes and 50 or so seconds. I mean, and you're accelerating the entire way because you wind up 200 kilometers above the Earth going 17,000 miles per hour. It's an amazing amount of power. And so we actually were above 3.5 Gs for about 3 minutes. That's amazing.
That's incredible. That is absolutely incredible. I know I've been fortunate, different aircraft that I've flown is those Gs, and feeling them momentarily 9.5 is what I pulled actually in the F-14, the first Top Gun, from we got 9.5, and we, on the new one, we were pulling a lot of different Gs, but to sustain that, I was wondering, because I always wanted to know what that rocket and feeling that acceleration, where you could actually feel that acceleration the whole time. Do you felt that the whole time, acceleration on the body?
The whole time. Yes, coming off the pad initially, it feels like a very high speed elevator. The first move off the pad, you're not going very fast, and you're actually not accelerating very fast, but it just continues to pick up. I mean, the entire time you're moving. And at about 1 minute into the flight, you're in the region of maximum dynamic pressure, what you hear people say, max Q. And that's where you're in the thickest part of the air down low, but you're also going really fast. And that could actually crumple the rocket and the spacecraft. So they actually slow down. They throttle the rocket down. And you feel that. You feel yourself. It's like tapping the brakes. And then really what stands out is the throttle up. Then they go back to full power. And when they do that, it felt like lighting the afterburner in an F-18. I wish I would have been able to feel what it was like in an F-14, because I hear it is quite impressive. But I never got to fly that aircraft. But you definitely feel it the entire way up. And then the first stage shuts down after about 2.5 minutes. And then we ride the second stage all the way into orbit. And that one starts just at about 1 G. And so, again, it's a very light push, but then you push for another 6 minutes. And about half of that time, you're above 3 Gs. And so your chest is very heavy, and you have to focus on breathing, inhale, and then the exhale kind of works itself out, because of the pressure. It is quite amazing. It was a truly incredible experience.
I did not know you had to work on that inhale. That's incredible. That is extraordinary. Yeah. Now, being a NASA astronaut, you require, constantly pushing the boundaries. And what is the most physically demanding task, both kind of before and after, like during the space flight?
Yeah. Yeah, great question. And I think it's interesting to think about this. It depends on the time horizon you're looking at. So in the moment, the short-term, short-duration, most challenging part of what we do, I think, is training for and executing spacewalks. It's 6 to 7 hours of working and doing these very important things on the outside of the space station in the extreme environment of the vacuum of space, high temperatures, low temperatures, no air. And so that life support is critical, but it's also very physically demanding. You're moving around a suit that can weigh with your body in as much as 1,000 pounds, and you very rarely use your legs. It's like running 2 marathons, but on your hands the whole time. Your hands and fingers are very sore when you're done with this. And so that's the most physically challenging thing. And training for it on the ground, you're still in an extreme environment. In the Neutral Buoyancy Lab, our 2 million gallon, 40-foot deep pool where we train for spacewalks. And so it's still also physically demanding, even underwater. But when I think about the duration of a career and maybe something that has a huge impact on your lifespan, I think all the traveling and training and the stresses of this job, if you don't have healthy ways to manage that stress, it can actually affect your sleep. And then we also have to become comfortable sleeping in space, which is an extreme environment. We do lots of outdoor training, and you have to be able to sleep outdoors as well. So I think just looking at the way that these things, all of these stresses manifest in your life, you also have to have healthy coping strategies for the travel, all the different time zones we go in, and all the different stressors that come with the work. And then obviously then getting to space and being able to fall asleep and get the important rest that you need to accomplish your workday. That's one I think is a very physically demanding aspect of training and living in space.
Okay, Victor, there's two things. One, I from what I understand, and I've been fortunate enough to actually be fitted for a suit years ago, and just feeling the weight on Earth versus, I guess, in 0 G. But what people I don't think understand also is what I understand, this, is how hard it is opening and closing your hand, let alone like talk about moving the arms and moving the hands, the stiffness of the suit because of the pressure differential, just moving your hands, the dexterity of that. Could you, and then the next thing I want to ask you about is sleep, but could you tell us a little bit about that, please?
So yes, in that spacesuit, right, you're in the vacuum of space. The pressure there is zero, absolute zero. So you need something to keep your fluids in your blood and to help you stay conscious and comfortable. It keeps your temperature in a comfortable range as well. And so the suit is pressurized to 4.2 pressure pounds per square inch, 4.2 psi. And so the entire suit is at 4.2 psi, and it wants to sit about like this. And so anytime you move, you're moving against 4 pounds per square inch. And so we have certain bearings. If you rotate your arm like this, you're rotating a bearing. So that's roughly, you just have to overcome a little friction. But if you move like this, you're pushing against the suit, the stiff fabric, the many layers that can maintain that pressure in the vacuum of space. And so when you close your hand, a great example, sometimes you'll hear people say it's like squeezing a tennis ball. But squeezing a tennis ball, if you squeeze it, it's work to squeeze it, but then to let it go, opening it pushes against you and helps you out. What I like to say is moving around in the suit is like putting your hand in rice. If you open your hand very wide, you're pushing against that rice. If you close your hand, you're closing it against that rice. And there are some athletes that use buckets of rice to train their grip strength. And I think that's a little bit more of an accurate comparison.
Did you do things like that to increase your grip strength? Because even dropping your arms, you talk about pushing it up, but dropping your arms and moving in that way. I mean, what did you do anything physically to increase your strength with that?
Absolutely. We have a great team of, we call them astronaut strength conditioning and rehabilitation specialists, ACERS for short. And our ACERS craft very specific workouts to help us. Like I said, training for spacewalks is also physically rigorous. And so they actually develop those workouts to help us be safe in the neutral buoyancy lab where we train, and obviously to also help benefit while we're in space. And we do very specific exercises for our grip as well as for our shoulders. Those are two of the areas that you really tax when you're doing spacewalk training or an actual walk in space. And the other thing is they give us suggestions on how to work out. For example, when I do my shoulder exercises, I originally started using dumbbells, and I would hold the handle and do my shoulder exercising, rotating and doing things to exercise my rotator cuff and all those small muscles around your shoulders. What I started doing, because of the suggestion of my strength trainer specialist, was to use plates, the same weight, but in a plate, and I would pinch them so that during my exercise, I was also increasing the challenge on my grip and therefore getting a better grip workout while I was exercising my shoulders. Things like that are the kinds of things that our astronaut strength conditioning and rehabilitation specialists help us with.
Did you feel, that's incredible, did you feel the longer you were up there, because I want to just a little question on this also, is that you were there for so long, and the time when you got there and when you did the spacewalk, what level of depreciation of bone and muscle density is there? And did you feel a difference? Like, what happens to your metabolism with the Krebs cycle, with the mitochondria? Did that affect the spacewalk? Could you tell the difference in terms of your strength on the ground that you built up? Is there a diminishing effect the longer that you're in space, is my question ultimately, and how did that affect your metabolism, your BMR, with calories and nutrition? Did you have to think about that?
Oh wow, there's a lot packed in there, and so that is definitely something we work hard to mitigate. You're going to lose bone and muscle, muscle due to potential atrophy from just I weigh 200 pounds and I'm not carrying that 200 pounds. It's like taking off a 200-pound backpack when I get to weightlessness. And so I'm losing that effort every day. And so I have to make it up in my workout. And also your bone density, we have this condition called osteopenia. It's like space-induced osteoporosis, the enzymes that encourage bone growth. Our bones are constantly being reclaimed or eaten and then reconstituted. And in space, for some reason, the process that eats the bone or takes away bone continues, but the part that reforms new bone slows down. And so we try to mitigate that with our strength training and also with medication. And so the effects there it can have a huge effect on you. But the workouts that we do are one of the biggest mitigators. And so I actually started working out before the mission. And then when I got into space, I continued to work out. We get 2.5 hours every day to do exercise, strength training, cardiovascular training, and then also time to clean up and get ready for the workday. And that was extremely valuable. Now, when I first got to space, my body is going through so many changes. I lost about 2 kilograms, and I was only eating about 2,200 calories. It took me about 45 days to get used to the environment, to come up with some strategies for me to eat like I did on the ground, like keeping snacks in my pocket at all time. And when I started snacking and eating in space more like I did on the ground, I got up to 3,300 or so calories, 3,200 calories a day. And I was also working out very hard. So overall, in space, I actually felt stronger than I did on the ground. I was able to work out really hard. In fact, I told myself before flight, I wanted to make sure I didn't get hurt. I didn't want to hurt my back or my shoulders because I wanted to always be ready for the spacewalks and all of the other work on the space station. And so I felt like I could have lifted even heavier and ran harder on the treadmill, but I just didn't want to hurt myself. But the strength training and cardio training are excellent in space.
Incredible. So that when you were doing your spacewalks, you didn't feel like you had lost strength.
Not at all. By the time we went out the door, I felt stronger, actually. And over my mission, I did lose a little bit of bone mass. I lost about 2% of my bone mass, and they say I'll have that recovered in about a year. Muscle mass, I actually gained. So I told you I lost 2 kilograms in the first 2 months. At the end of the mission, though, after the complete 6 months, I was 4 kilograms heavier. So I gained back that 2 and then put 4 more on. So I came back with more muscle mass than I launched with.
That's incredible. And so you feel like did that had a reflection on your metabolism overall? Increase your metabolism?
I think so. I think it may have been an increase. I took a test when I got back to check our VO2 max. And so the VO2 max is a great example of how we're doing metabolically. And so I was in family. I was close to when I launched. And that's what our ACERs also are focused on, helping us reacclimate to Earth and getting us back to what we were like pre-flight. And so my strength numbers, my bench press, squat, my VO2 max, we do that by getting on a cycle and going until we fail, pretty much. And they measure our gases that we're inspiring and expiring, and that tells them our VO2 max. And my number was a point or two different than what I was pre-flight. And so I would say overall, I was able to maintain my metabolism, and that's pretty impressive considering all of the things that your body is experiencing.
That is impressive. Did they test your BMR after the flight to understand what that was? Did that change at all? That number?
We don't normally do that for crew members. I think that's something you can get if you want to. But I was involved in an experiment called myotones, which is studying not just muscle mass, but the quality of your muscle. And it's really looking at this device to see if we can use a very simple external device without having to do like biopsies to determine muscle tissue quality. And so that experiment actually takes 10 measurements all around your body over the course of the mission. And you also have pre-flight and post-flight numbers to compare it to. And so I actually was able to get those kinds of measurements. But like I said, before flight, in flight, and after.
Yeah, because you were there for 6 months. What was the difference? Because when we talk about going to the moon, we talk about going to Mars. Was there a large difference as time went on with those numbers?
It actually, I lost a little bit in the beginning and gained muscle over time. And so I think my overall proportion stayed the same. And being able to maintain what you start with on Earth is great. That's a great standard. But that's very much because of the amazing exercise equipment. And if you've never seen it, the ARED, it's the Advanced Resistive Exercise Device, one of the most important technologies on the space station, in my opinion. It allows us to do all kinds of exercises, bench press, squats, curls. And that machine, though, takes up almost half a module. the space for the machine plus the range of motion for the body that you put on it. And so when we go to the moon, we won't be able to do that kind of workout in transit. And that's very important to understand. We're going to have something smaller like a rower, like an erg that you would see on Earth. But when we get to the moon or to lunar orbit, we're going to need some type of a habitation module where we can get exercise, because that bone and muscle health, and also it was a part of what I enjoyed most during the day. So it's also a part of mental well-being, but it's very important to our physical well-being.
Right. So you feel like when we go to Mars, obviously on the planet, there'll be a whole module for it. But on the way to Mars, you'll feel like we'll need a separate thing? I mean, because when you see 2001, we're talking about, do we put a force of gravity? When you talk about what the difference of gravity on Mars versus the moon and on the way there, I know there's been a lot of talk and evaluation as to what is, 0.6 gravity on the human body. We don't really know until we get there and it's done for an extended period of time. So you feel like, will we have a separate module just on the way to Mars? That's what it'll have.
I think so, because with current propulsion technology, right, we need to get better propulsion technology, because if we can shorten the duration of the trip, right now it's going to be 6 to 9 months. If we can shorten that trip, that means less radiation exposure and less time for your body to degrade in weightlessness. But, trying to create artificial gravity by spinning one module, that creates guidance and navigation and control challenges due to gyroscopic effects. So it would actually be really complicated to do that. So you're going to need to exercise. You're going to need basic exercise. And something I try to encourage our scientists and our exercise specialists to think about is, ARED is a fantastic machine, a wonderful contraption. But we also need to remember basic things. I wrestled in college and in high school. And so I think of the most amazing exercise device there is in history is another human body. That's my opinion. But, also doing calisthenics or just basic isometrics where you push on a structure. And so maybe just getting in the corner of a module and putting your hands and feet against different sides and pushing statically against something, or using another crewmate and you both kind of do squat presses where you're pushing against each other. Those are the kinds of things we need to think about and find ways to incorporate so that we not only have the ability to do strength training, but we also have a backup in case a machine breaks. Because again, on the way to Mars, you're not going to be able to stop off at the hardware store and get parts to fix it. And so we need to have a way to back up those exercise devices, because it's such a vital a part of physical and mental well-being.
That's a very good point. That is a very good point. It's interesting because we know what zero G is, have a great idea, I think, of how the body behaves under zero G over an extended period of time. And of course on Earth, but all those experiments in terms of the moon and on our way when we get to Mars, how's the body at 0.6, at those different forces of gravity, how will the body develop? Are these things that you guys spoke of and as you were preparing for this flight? Did you evaluate any of that?
No, we didn't, but I do know that people are thinking about that, the scientific and the medical communities. I know that the crew that just returned, so we just launched a crew to space. You were there for that launch.
I was there.
Well, just prior to that, we returned crew 2, the crew that flew to space station after us in a Dragon. And when they got back, they actually had an activity just after launch, just after landing, just within hours after they landed. We had activities where they had to climb up a contraption and move some large masses. That simulates being able to throw out the emergency equipment into the water if you landed in the water in your capsule after being deconditioned from being in space for an extended period. The moon missions are Apollo astronauts. They say that the worst period of deconditioning was after a 14 to 21 day mission in space, somewhere in that third week of being in space. And that's what our moon missions will be like. And so coming back, deconditioned, landing in the water, and maybe landing off target, we need to know that folks can operate and function in that environment. So we think about it, but for missions to the station, we're going to be in weightlessness for an extended period and then have to recondition to 1G. And so our focus is on 1G, but I do think we need to find ways in that construct to evaluate things like this, coming back from the moon or being on Mars, because it's amazing. I was just writing an email to the folks that just went up there to Crew 3. And one of the things I encouraged them to do was to learn the lessons that space is going to teach you. I used the example of the Apollo astronauts, the hop they would do on the surface of the moon. They weren't taught that. They innovated. They figured it out because the environment, it made sense. In that, 1/6 of Earth's gravity, they realized it was easier to hop than to try to ambulate, to try to walk like you do on Earth. And so sometimes you just need to be in that environment. Like you said, you need to experience 0.6 G to understand how your body wants to operate. And, the physical sense, there's a little genius to the body, and we need to be good at listening to what our bodies tell us.
Boy, that's incredible. I know that hop, I was always thinking, you don't want to fall. Do you know what I mean? Because you can't damage that suit at all. One thing I just want to ask, like when you did your spacewalk, what happens if you have an itch on your nose, your ear? What are you you're thinking, like you start sweating, you're going, oh my gosh, are you one of these? I mean, you can't get your arm out to just scratch that. Did you ever have have an itch somewhere where you're like, man, I can't wait till this is over. I'm gonna have a good scratch here.
Well, yes, I think as soon as you put the suit on and you're going to pressurize it, that's when everything does start to feel. You start, is that an itch coming? But so we actually have a device inside the suit that is for Valsalva. Just like in airplanes, as you start to descend and you feel the pressure build up in your ears, we have a small foam block that we can push our nostrils against so that we can force air and then expand air into our eardrums to Valsalva. But that device is used mostly, I think I can speak for the entire astronaut corps to say its number one use is to rest your chin on so that you can rest. And then number two is to scratch your face. And so there is a way to scratch certain itches, depending on if it's in this area, you can scratch it. But when you take the suit off, yeah.
When you take the suit off, I didn't mean to cut you off. I beg your pardon.
Yeah, you're definitely looking for some relief when you take it off. There's all kind of little itches or aches and pains, and so interestingly, I had a situation that I almost couldn't do anything about. So we have this anti-fog on the inside. We dab just a few drops, wipe it on the entire visor, and try to get rid of it. And there have been other instances of astronauts experiencing that anti-fog getting in their eyes. And I don't believe it was the anti-fog I applied to the suit. There's actually an investigation going on to find out where it may have come from. Maybe it was sucked up into the life support system and then pushed back out later. But I had 3 spacewalks where I did 4 total. And on 3 of those spacewalks, I had something in my eye that caused a burning sensation. And one of those happened while I was working on a pretty important piece of hardware. And so I actually had to just stop and hold still. And I just kept blinking, waiting for my eye to water. And it did. And again, my body took care of itself. And so I just kept blinking. And my eye watering, over time, it dissolved, whatever that was. But it took time. It wasn't just a small thing that the liquid pushed out. It had to dissolve something, and I could feel the burning sensation slowly decrease. And then I was able to see and finish my activity. But it felt like I was standing there out on the mast on the very end of the space station. I was on the solar array on the space station, and I was way out there waiting for this burning sensation to go away. A pretty interesting experience.
I think that's an understatement, isn't it? Pretty interesting. It was like, okay, wow, that's intense. That is intense.
It was intense.
Congratulations. I'm glad you made it through. Did they figure out what that vapor was?
We think it is that anti-fog solution, but there's other things in the suit. We wear a harness that can take biometric measurements. It sees our heart rate, and they can figure out respiration and understand how quickly we're going through our oxygen and CO2 scrubbing systems. And so we have those leads stuck to our body with an adhesive, but underneath that there is they call it the electrode gel. And it's this gel that we put on before we stick them to our chest and cover them with tape. Well, that gel could have potentially leaked out as well. And I've never put it in my eye to see what it feels like, but I imagine it wouldn't feel very good. So there are a few things within that sealed volume of the spacesuit that are culprits. And I'm actually waiting to get the results of the investigation because I'd love to understand that more. At this time, I'm not sure what it was. It definitely wasn't water, and it wasn't my own sweat. I've had my own sweat in my eyes plenty of times at the gym, and it didn't feel like that.
Wow. Incredible. Yeah. Well, congratulations with that. Let me ask you something. You had you gave advice to to the ISS and the group that just took off. What did you get any good advice as you were a trainee that you applied that you when you were up there you thought, you know what, I'm glad they told me this?
Oh, so often before flight, even in flight, and even now after flight. Some of the things that really resonated before flight. So in training, someone said to me, actually several people said it. One of the primary things that we have to do as astronauts is to understand how the training isn't the same as the reality. It's our job to integrate all the training and to know how it's different than doing it in weightlessness. And that is just so true. You get there and everything has this one theme, weightlessness. And being in orbit can change everything. The way you brush your teeth, go to the bathroom, eat, drink, and then, of course, maintenance, science, and spacewalks. Waking up and going to sleep and waking up again in weightlessness, it's just something that you